Hey, folks, whoever's listening, my gosh, it's been a while. And we're delighted to be back, actually. We have had an incredible, an incredible year. And we are currently in just outside of Barnstable in Devon in a place called Swimbridge. And as a lot of you know, we went nuts this year. Well, I think the whole world's gone nuts this year, probably the year before, or how long have we been nuts actually? And we decided to be done with being told what to do, be done with waiting to be told what to do. We wanted out of our mortgage, we wanted out of the system really, and we wanted to move towards reestablishing who was in charge of life. And amongst that, we wanted to expose the kids to more uncertainty. We wanted to get uncomfortable, even more uncomfortable, and a whole host of other things, which I'm going to talk about as we go ahead here. So I thought it would just be really fun to get back into the podcasting world space by updating and bringing everyone into the picture from what we've been doing, why we did it, what we have learned from it, and what we're going to implement going forward. And hopefully there might be some lessons for you guys from that. The last 6 months, we are in just the craziest time. And what has become really prevalent to Kerry and I as we have tried to navigate these troubled waters is the impact of what is happening right now and what we really want to create as an environment for our kids to grow, and really starting to get in touch with what are we doing? You know, what about this system that we're part of is even helpful, even works anymore, to be honest? And seemingly spending so much time demanding the world out there to change, and remembering that Gandhi's words sounded exactly like, you be the change you want to see in other people. And what about the world inside here? What about the world inside your home? What are we doing to inspire our kids towards the future, inspiring ourselves towards the future? And that really is outlined and grounded in the home, not what I see going on out there and going on in social media. Not that the social media is a real reflection of what's going on out there, it's just a reflection. So I just wanted to tee that up really with the mining Kerry's heart for where we were heading and what we decided to do this year, and what we're looking at going forward. So as I said, if you have got the video here, you might be able to see this beautiful little caravan that we bought in April, and we just couldn't find a name for this caravan. That's us. We've just sold. We have a car attached to the said caravan, and here we were in South Wales, super excited about our trip. And we roughly had an outline of what we were going to do, move from South Wales all the way up to the the Highlands of Scotland. And, you know, to be honest, we might have even found a place there to live. We just weren't sure. We wanted to minimize the mortgage, or a place to minimize the lending really, and to find the right place for us to live that wasn't super expensive and would allow us to create the kind of sustainable and self-sufficient lifestyle that we wanted to and we want to create. So this was in South Wales in a place called Clandalo, probably, excuse my Welsh pronunciation. And it all started here. This was around June, end of May, early June time. And we were sailing off into Bonnie, Scotland. Here is a beautiful picture of the Loch Lomond, and that was one of our first stops. It was just a phenomenal place, my gosh. And it was the first taste of anything we've had like that here in the United Kingdom. And yeah, we were in the cold, we were in that lake there, and it was just so inspiring. And the sense of space and vastness of nature, more than what we really have down here in the south, it just got a different character, just something wonderful about it. From there, we traveled up right up towards the north coast and through, oh my gosh, why can't I, past Ben Nevis, and on our way up, here I am on the left in a waterfall near Ben Nevis, which was just, oh my gosh, you can see the look on my face. And there I am in the Isles of Skye, which we're actually coming back down on our route at that point. So here we are again. Where were we? I wish Gary was here to be able to tell you the names of these places. This is an island, a nature reserve, again, right on the north coast. And look at the color of that water. It was freezing. I was in the water most of the time. And that beautiful silver sand there, it was like porridge. It was just delicious. I don't know how delicious it would be actually to stand in porridge. Nonetheless, it was wonderful. You could see the look on little Willow's face there. And it's kind of almost difficult in a presentation here to outline just how phenomenal it was. Seem to say phenomenal and amazing 100 times already. So I'll start cutting to the chase. What did we learn? Well, what was for them? The kids learned some great stuff. They learned how to develop relationships really quickly, which was new for them, and then let them go just as quickly, because we were hovering around campsites for, at times only 3 or 4 days. And so how could they build a connection that they felt shy about with other kids in the park, in the playground, in their caravans? How could they foster a connection, and how could they let that go? And Florence had one of the biggest challenges with that, but she really came to life on the road. She wasn't forced to do it. It was something that she had desire to do for herself. We saw that as a really key skill, really, in this space of uncertainty, and kind of, just picking up something new, creating a bond, and then letting that go and not getting too attached to it. And it was just wonderful to watch that happen. Letting go, and in the same thing, letting go of an attachment to where we were staying. That was a real challenge for Kerry and I, to come from living in the same house for sort of 3+ years to up in sticks very frequently, and only just getting to know a place and then upping and moving on again. Lots of you listening would have been traveling before. When you're traveling with a family, it's very different. There seems to be this desire to want to put roots down, and that we just weren't given that chance. And that was great to deal with that uncertainty and those challenges. So home was essentially not a place. Home was cemented as us being with our family. And again, on the subject of kids and that subject of family, we really had to learn how to resolve issues faster. In that very small space of a 6-berth caravan, you stand up off of the bed and you're in the kitchen, and you sit down again, and then you're in the kids' bedroom. Called it their bedroom. You mean the other end of the caravan. Yeah, the sulking, the whining, the not agreeing, the emotional turbulence of it all was a very real thing. And I think for me, that was the huge emotional demand of our children, whether they're in a small space or a big space. It's just been so overwhelming. Just had no idea that Florence now 9, Eden now 7, Willow now 3, almost coming up to 4, just what is required to hold that emotional energy. It takes a lot for the parents to be in a good space, because you never know what's going to happen from one minute to the next. And to be able to hold that for them without fixing it, changing it, trying to change them, minimizing it because it's easier for us. My gosh, we found that as challenging as moving around from place to place. And it was real change, for them on a daily basis. We wanted that. We asked for it. And we're just hoping that we did a good job of, finding our way. And so the great bridge into way is the way of counsel. Way of counsel really cemented itself in part of the fabric of what the Lepiers do and how they're doing this thing called life, to help us handle those issues and help us handle those challenges. So we've got the 5 of us here sat around a candle, something central in the middle. There's a talking piece that Florence is just putting back down. The speaker has the power, and whilst the speaker is speaking, everyone else is listening. And it really gives each person the space to process and to be listened to and to tune into what's really going on for them. And without that, how is that done in usual spaces? It's done in the living room informally, maybe. It's done in the kitchen at an inconvenient time when the parent hasn't got space to listen. This is the 5 of us sitting down and saying, hey, there's some stuff we need to talk through, stuff that we moved over too quickly today. What was that about? What's going on there? Let's unpack that. Let's have a look, see. Let's see what we can learn and re-establish the connection. Ultimately, what's happened is we become disconnected, haven't we, as a group? And an event might have happened, or someone might just be in a bad place. And day to day, everyone's so darn busy that we're not giving each other the space we need to really process what's going on. And that just compounds and builds on top of each other. That leads to some kind of explosion. And you kind of look over at each other and what's got into you? Why is that such a big deal? The truth is, it's not a big deal, but it's compounded up over the last 3 or 4 days. And each issue I haven't had space and time to resolve. And now it's turned into this crazy bleh noise. So way of counsel really found its space for us. Kind of was there or thereabouts anyway. But I can't recommend that highly enough as a tool to help you bring your family together, to foster a sacred space and foster more connection than what you have before. On to me then. Need way less stuff than we think we do. I really thought I was doing a good job of letting go of stuff, but you can't take much into a caravan with you. Oddly, we did buy a stand-up paddleboard in the end, which got shoved in underneath someone's bed somewhere. And we realized we need way less money than we thought we do. We need way less space than we thought we did. We minimized all of our outgoings. So really got a handle on our cost and what we were costing the world, what we needed. Our expenses came down a bit. Some months, the site fees, depending on where we stayed, etc., were considerably higher. So on average, we didn't really save that much money living in a caravan, oddly, because you're clocking up £600-700 sometimes per month. Site fees, that includes council tax, yes, and water and electricity, yes. And so, but on the whole, the expenses stayed whereabouts they were. So with having less stuff, there was less time and mind consumption by things that we don't need. We've dived into this little holiday cottage for the winter, and already things are being brought back down to us. And it's just having more stuff is occupying more mind space, even if you don't want to, even if you don't believe you're consciously aware of it. Just it being around somewhere eats energy, eats mind space, and reduces the amount of presence one might have. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we haven't put away yet in our hallway out here. And every time I walk down the hallway, my head's down and I'm looking and clocking that stuff and thinking, we've got to put that away. That's got to be done. So I engage a low level negative thinking rather than head up, being present, not thinking, enjoying being present, enjoying each footstep and being in touch and connected to the body. Instead, I'm whinging and complaining. For me, there was even more pressure on being in a good space for the kids, my gosh, again, back to that emotional demand. I just wasn't prepared for that. And that's okay. It put even more pressure on me to make sure I was in a good place to be able to handle it. Because if you're in a bad place and you walk into the caravan, that small environment, and there are four, including Kerry, emotional mouths to feed, you were toast. That would just turn into a time bomb. So I'll touch into what I did for that in a moment. There was a big distraction with having to fetch water regularly and change the toilet and the waste, etc., etc. Part of the fun of it all, just living in it full time, it became a bit of a distraction. Time for emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy between Kerry and me, you'd probably say took a bit of a nosedive. There's very little separation between us and the kids, which we knew, so that had an impact there. And what I would do to get what I need would be dial into men's groups way more regularly. I had to look outside of my family as an emotional and spiritual income. I needed to get that elsewhere. They didn't have it to give, and it's unfair for me to put this horrible burden of my emotional and spiritual capacity and demand on them. It's not their job. It's Kerry's job to love me the best she can. And so I would dial out to get what I need. I would connect with nature more than I ever have, from Scotland, and just calls you out to it. And that was great about the caravan. You're called outdoors rather than this time of year wanting to hunker down and being called indoors. The caravan as an environment, just because it's so small, promotes you to be outside. So we're kind of missing that a little bit already, just jumping into some accommodation. And it's just fascinating to watch the impact of the hugely different environment that has on us. We are indoors. We want the heating on more. We want to be wrapped up. Sort of nature feels like, oh no. And I got to make a conscious effort now to put myself outdoors, which I do on a daily basis. Yet there still feels more effort. So we're more connected to the seasons than ever in the caravan. And there's a huge difference between wild water and piped water. There's so many chemicals pumped into piped water that you receive in your taps each day, even for your drinking water. It is just full of crap. And the difference between lying down in cold piped water in a bathtub or in a shower, it just feels so different to the body than lying down in wild water and connecting with the wild water. It's literally the difference between dead and alive. And no criticism if the cold shower is all you got each day to invigorate your health, mind and body, then great, that's enough. Lots more I would like to say. Mainly just want to wrap up here this time, this short intro. Kapow, getting back on your radar. Going forwards then, number one, top of the list, counsel is critical. Holding all of these energies in this home, in our little home here, is we need help and support with that. So way of counsel is an absolute must for us as a family. We are looking to promote that work a little bit more. It's based on native ancient Indian American culture and how those guys came together to connect, to make decisions, not even make decisions, just to be with their challenges and issues and changes, and to acknowledge the changes in the environment, space, people. Need a whole episode really just to describe counsel in more detail. That's number one. Number two is the amount of time in nature. That always has to be uber high for us. And again, although it's a conscious effort, we know the value. I took Florence out for a walk a few days ago, and she wasn't in a great place. We went out, took an hour or so out for a walk, wrote some poetry, painted some pictures. And when we got back, the words she used from our emotional wheel was joyful, alive, open, connected, loving. Yeah, okay, we spent time together, and that's what you would hope for. And so spending time with Dad, yeah, it was just beautiful to see that one element had changed. We just exposed her to nature, didn't fix her problem or situation, and it on its own, the two, her nature and nature, the natural world, just dovetailed together beautifully. And finally, having a different perspective on life and an appreciation to just slow down and tune into what we already have to be enough. What we already have is enough. And the incessant sickness of more drives us to mad. And we see that everywhere. And it's not something that you can just sever and stop. It's something to just develop an awareness of our need for more, where that shows up. Why am I not satisfied with what is here already? And just allowing yourself to ask that question of either A, how can I appreciate more wholeheartedly what I have? Or what is it that isn't satisfying me? And be courageous enough to go down through the levels internally. What's going on for me inside, rather than looking at your partner and making them your problem and wanting to switch them out. That's almost never the solution. The peace is an inside job. And so, yes, finding peace, finding nature, finding connection, finding the things that really matter, what really matters to you as a result of our trip. Hopefully that's something to take away from this podcast here is, finding what is really important to you as a family. And that might be different for everyone, but finding a way to open up and give yourselves an opportunity to meet those values, meet those needs, and coming together to maybe perhaps redefine what they are. If you haven't done that before, give that a go. We can offer some advice for that. So, great to be back, you guys. Hopefully this is a start of some great things to come. This probably won't be a weekly feature, but perhaps every 10 days or so. And like I said, great to be back. Great to see you. And hopefully it was great to hear from us too.